Jaren ran through the tall grass of the colony's edge, his small boots kicking up dust that shimmered in the twin suns. The wind was warm, carrying scents of wildflowers and the faint tang of metal from the nearby human settlement. He laughed, chasing a small rolling ball of light that flickered as it floated above the ground. "Wait, don't run too fast," a tiny voice called. Jaren turned and saw her. She was small, barely reaching his waist, with skin that shimmered like silver in the sunlight and eyes as bright as emeralds. Lyra, the little alien princess, had come again to play. She had delicate wings, almost transparent, and her laughter was musical, ringing across the fields. "Catch me if you can," she shouted, darting into the tall grass. Jaren smiled and ran after her, his heart full of joy. He loved these moments. Humans and aliens were not always close, but he and Lyra had formed a special bond. She was a princess of a distant star system, and he was a simple human boy from a quiet colony. But that did not matter to them. Lyra zipped through the grass, her wings sparkling. Jaren stumbled once, laughing, but quickly regained his balance. The two of them tumbled and ran, chasing the ball of light, their laughter echoing across the empty fields. When they finally stopped, both panting, Lyra perched on a rock and looked at Jaren seriously. "Do you know something, Jaren?" she asked, her small hands folded in front of her. "What?" he asked, still catching his breath. Lyra tilted her head and smiled. "When I grow up, I will marry you." Jaren froze. He blinked, unsure if he had heard correctly. "Marry me?" he repeated. "Yes," Lyra said confidently. "I promise." She tapped her tiny chest with a finger, her eyes shining with innocence. "Even if we are from different worlds, I will come back for you." Jaren laughed nervously. He was only 8 and marriage was a strange word, but he liked the idea. "Okay," he said finally, grinning. "I'll wait for you too." Lyra's face lit up with joy. She jumped from the rock and twirled in the sunlight. "Good, you must promise." "I promise," Jaren said, holding out his hand. She placed her small one in his, and they shook hands with solemn little faces. The two of them sat on the grass, watching the twin suns slowly dip toward the horizon. They talked about everything: stars, strange creatures, and adventures they would have when they grew up. The worlds around them were vast, full of mysteries, but for Jaren and Lyra, these fields were their universe. "Do you think humans are brave?" Lyra asked quietly, looking at him. "I think so," Jaren replied. "We try our best, and we never give up." Lyra nodded slowly. "Then I like humans." "You will be brave for me, won't you?" "I will," Jaren said, smiling. "And I will make sure you are safe too." Their friendship continued like this for months. Every week, Lyra would arrive in her small shuttle from her star system. The two would play, talk, and share secrets. Jaren taught her human games, and she showed him alien toys that floated and glowed. They laughed together, ran together, and slowly the promise became more than words. It was a bond neither of them could break. But life was never simple. One day, Lyra's mother, the Queen, arrived. Her tall figure towered over the children, regal and serious. "Lyra," she said, her voice soft but firm, "it is time for you to return to your world for your training." Lyra's small shoulders drooped. "But I don't want to leave Jaren," she said, her voice barely a whisper. The Queen knelt down, brushing a strand of hair from Lyra's glowing face. "You will return soon, little one. And you must not forget him." She looked at Jaren, her sharp eyes softening. "Take care of my daughter while she is here." "I will," Jaren said firmly. "I promise." Lyra hugged him tightly. "Promise me you will wait for me too." "I promise," Jaren said again. He felt a pang in his chest as he watched her small shuttle lift into the sky. The twin suns reflected off the metal, and then she was gone, leaving only a trail of shimmering light behind. For weeks, Jaren felt empty. The grass field seemed too quiet without her laughter. But he kept thinking of her words. "When I grow up, I will marry you." That promise became his anchor, giving him hope for the future. Years passed. Jaren grew taller, stronger, and wiser. He learned about machinery, starships, and alien technology. He trained to explore the galaxy, always remembering Lyra's words. The memory of her promise gave him courage in moments of fear. He often thought of her as he worked. "I wonder if she is safe," he said to himself one night, watching the stars from his small balcony. "I hope she remembers me." Meanwhile, on her distant world, Lyra trained hard. She studied leadership, strategy, and diplomacy. She learned to fly small starships, use advanced technology, and negotiate with alien species. But even as she became a leader, her mind often wandered back to the quiet fields and laughter she had shared with Jaren. One day, her mentor asked, "Princess, why do you work so hard?" Lyra paused, thinking. "Because I want to be strong," she said finally. "Strong enough to return to him. Strong enough to keep the promise I made when I was a child." Her mentor raised an eyebrow. "A promise from your childhood?" Lyra nodded. "Yes, some promises are bigger than worlds. Some promises are bigger than time." Back on the human colony, Jaren finished another long day repairing a starship engine. His hands were greasy, his uniform dusty, but he smiled as he remembered her words. He often shared his thoughts with his closest friends, though he never told anyone the secret promise he kept in his heart. "They grow up so fast, don't they?" his friend said one evening. "Yes," Jaren replied. "And some people, you never forget, no matter how far away they are." Little did Jaren know, Lyra was thinking of him too, across the vast stretch of space. Their worlds were different, their lives complex, but the bond of that childhood promise remained unbroken. And in the quiet of the night, when the twin suns set and the stars emerged, both Jaren and Lyra looked up at the sky. Somewhere far away, each whispered to themselves, "I will keep my promise. One day we will meet again." The years passed quickly like comets streaking across the sky. Jaren grew taller, stronger, and wiser, yet the memory of the little alien princess never left him. Though he spent his days working in the human colony and traveling to distant planets, he often paused to think of her, the tiny figure with sparkling wings who had promised to marry him. Jaren became known for his intelligence and bravery. From a young age, he had a knack for machines, able to fix almost anything: starship engines, alien devices, even mysterious equipment humans had never seen before. He loved exploring unknown planets, studying strange plants, and learning about alien life forms. Yet, in all his travels, he never found another who reminded him of Lyra. On the other side of the galaxy, Lyra was no longer the small, playful child who had giggled through the fields. She had grown into a poised and courageous young woman. Her silver skin now shimmered with the elegance of royalty, and her emerald eyes held the depth of someone who had seen countless challenges. She trained in strategy, diplomacy, and combat, becoming a leader her people admired and feared in equal measure. Yet despite all her accomplishments, Lyra never forgot Jaren. The promise she had made all those years ago remained in her heart, a light she carried through long days of royal duties. Often she would close her eyes and imagine the fields, the tall grass, and the twin suns where she had laughed with him. She wondered if he had kept his promise too. One evening, after a long day of lessons, Lyra stood on the balcony of her palace, looking out at the distant stars. Her tutor approached quietly. "Princess," he said, "you spend too much time thinking of a human boy from a distant planet. You should focus on your responsibilities." Lyra shook her head. "I am thinking about what it means to keep a promise," she said softly. "Some promises are bigger than worlds, and some can guide a life. I made one promise to him, and I intend to honor it no matter how far he is." Her tutor was silent for a moment. Then he nodded slowly. "You are wise beyond your years, Princess. I hope you find him one day." Meanwhile, back on the human colony, Jaren received a letter from the Council of Explorers. He had been invited to join an elite group of human adventurers, traveling to new star systems to study alien worlds and establish trade. The letter thrilled him. It was an opportunity to see more of the galaxy, learn new things, and test his skills. But deep in his heart, he thought of Lyra and wondered if she would ever see him again. He spent months preparing for the journey. He repaired old ships, learned alien languages, and read every book about the distant star systems he might visit. His excitement was mixed with nervousness. The galaxy was vast, and he knew the chance of meeting Lyra again seemed small, but he held on to hope. As Jaren explored strange planets, he often found signs of alien life, some dangerous, some curious, some wise beyond imagination. He marveled at the ingenuity of alien species and realized that humans, though young in the galaxy, had a unique ability: courage. While other species hesitated in the face of danger, humans often acted boldly, relying on wit and determination. Jaren felt proud of his kind, remembering Lyra's admiration of humans when they were children. On Lyra's side, her royal life was filled with responsibilities. She negotiated trade agreements, settled disputes, and trained in advanced combat. Political intrigue was constant, Rival factions within the royal court watched her every move, testing her patience and skill. Yet she faced each challenge with a calm determination. She remembered the tiny human boy bee. The colony was quiet that morning. Jaren was in the workshop, fixing a small engine that had been acting strangely on one of the exploration ships. Sparks flew and the smell of oil filled the air. He worked with precision, his mind focused, but his thoughts often drifted to Lyra. He had not seen her in 20 years. 2 decades had passed since the little alien princess had promised to marry him in the fields under the twin suns. Yet he remembered her laughter, her sparkling wings, and the words that had changed his life forever. "When I grow up, I'll marry you." Suddenly the ground shook with a soft vibration. Jaren paused, wiping grease from his hands. "That's unusual," he muttered. The vibration grew stronger and a hum filled the air. Outside the workshop, a bright light appeared in the sky. People began to point and murmur in confusion. Jaren ran outside. His eyes widened. A sleek silver starship hovered above the colony. It shimmered like glass under the twin suns, and its design was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was both elegant and powerful, radiating authority. The colony's people watched in awe and fear. Few had seen alien royalty travel this close to human settlements, but Jaren's heart raced with a strange mix of hope and disbelief. He could see a small figure stepping out of the starship's ramp. At first it seemed too small to be real, and then he recognized her. Lyra. The little alien princess was no longer a child. She had grown into a strong, graceful woman. Her wings, now fully grown, sparkled under the sunlight, reflecting silver and green. Her eyes, still bright and emerald, searched the crowd until they landed on him. Jaren's breath caught. He ran toward her instinctively, as if no time had passed at all. The colony's people stepped aside, sensing something extraordinary was happening. "Jaren," Lyra said, her voice soft yet commanding, "I have come back, just as I promised." He stopped a few steps away, unsure if this was real. "Lyra, is it really you?" She nodded. "Yes, after all these years, I finally returned, and I have a reason to be here." Jaren's mind raced. Why now? After all this time?" Lyra's expression grew serious. "My kingdom, it is in danger. A ruthless empire is expanding across the galaxy. Many star systems have already fallen. My people need help. I need your help, Jaren." Jaren's chest tightened. The childhood promise had brought them together, but now the stakes were far higher than games in the fields. I will help," he said firmly. "Whatever it takes." Lyra's eyes softened and a small smile touched her lips. "I knew you would. Humans are brave. You always were." The colony watched silently, witnessing the reunion of 2 beings from different worlds, bound by a promise made long ago. Children who had once played in fields were now adults facing the weight of galactic responsibility together. The next hours were filled with preparation. Jaren helped Lyra and her advisors repair minor damages to her starship. He studied the star maps she had brought, pointing out routes and strategies the humans had learned from their own explorations. The 2 of them worked side by side, discovering that even after 20 years they could understand each other as if no time had passed. During a break, Lyra walked with Jaren to the edge of the colony's plateau. The twin suns reflected off her silver wings, making her appear almost otherworldly. "Do you remember the promise you made?" she asked quietly, her eyes searching his. "I remember," Jaren said, smiling. "And I waited, just like you promised you would." Lyra laughed softly, the sound like wind chimes in the morning. 20 years is a long time to wait." "I know," Jaren replied. "But some promises, they are worth waiting for." There was a pause, filled with unspoken words, memories, and emotions. For a moment, the galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath, watching 2 souls reunite after decades. Then, the seriousness of their situation returned. Lyra handed Jaren a small device, a holographic star map. "This shows the Empire's expansion," she explained. "They are moving faster than anyone expected. If we do not act, my system and perhaps more will be lost." Jaren studied the map, his mind already calculating. "We'll need to combine your fleet with human technology," he said. "We can create traps, use guerrilla strategies, and strike when they least expect it. We can win, but we need precision, courage, and quick thinking." Lyra nodded. "I knew I could trust you." You always had a human way of thinking that surprises even the smartest aliens. As they worked, the colony people gathered around, fascinated by the partnership. Some whispered, others stared in awe, but Jaren and Lyra paid them no mind. Their minds were focused on the threat, yet their hearts felt a connection that had survived time and distance. By evening, the preparations were complete. Lyra's fleet would launch a reconnaissance mission, and Jaren would accompany her, offering his expertise in engineering, strategy, and combat. They had little time to waste. The Empire was already moving, and every hour counted. Before leaving, Lyra turned to Jaren. I must admit, I was nervous. After 20 years, I wondered if you would still remember me, if you would still care. Jaren placed a hand on her shoulder, a simple gesture full of warmth and reassurance. I never forgot you, he said. You were my first friend, my first promise, and I have carried that promise every day. I will not let you face this alone. Lyra's eyes shone with emotion, but she masked it with the calm of a leader. Then we face it together, she said. As night fell, the twin suns disappeared below the horizon, leaving the stars to twinkle across the sky. The colony watched as Lyra's fleet slowly rose into orbit with Jaren at her side. They moved like shadows across the stars, a human and an alien princess reunited, preparing to face dangers that few could imagine. In the quiet moments before departure, Jaren thought of the little girl who had promised to marry him. She had returned, but she was no longer a child. She was a leader, brave and determined. And yet in her eyes he still saw the same sparkle, the same joy, and the same promise he had waited for all these years. Lyra, staring at the colony below, thought of the boy who had promised to wait. He had grown into a man she could trust, a man whose courage matched her own. The bond they had shared as children had transformed into a partnership of equals, one that might just save entire worlds. As their ships disappeared into the night sky, one thing was certain: the childhood promise had brought them together. But now, their destiny would be shaped by courage, trust in the bravery that only humans and a few remarkable aliens could share. The galaxy was about to see a reunion unlike any it had ever witnessed, and Jaren and Lyra were ready to face it, together. Jaren's first steps on Lyra's homeworld were filled with awe. The capital city glowed with lights of silver and green, towers reaching skyward, and streets bustling with alien life forms of every shape and color. He had traveled to many planets before, but nothing prepared him for the elegance and power of the princess's world. Lyra led him through the palace gates. This is where I grew up, she said, her voice calm yet filled with pride. But it is also where danger hides behind every corner. Politics here are complicated. Jaren followed, observing the careful balance of beauty and tension. Guards moved silently. Advisors whispered in private corners, and even the air seemed charged with anticipation. Lyra's people had high expectations, and anyone from outside, especially a human, was immediately scrutinized. As they entered the throne room, Lyra's advisors greeted her with respect. Jaren noticed a few glances aimed at him, some curious, others suspicious. He felt the weight of being a human in an alien world, yet he stood tall, determined not to show fear. Lyra spoke with authority. We have received intelligence that rival factions within our court may be plotting against us. Some seek to undermine our defenses and weaken our leadership. One of the senior advisors stepped forward. Princess, you have returned at a critical time. These factions grow bolder each day, and we have heard rumors of a human accompanying you. Lyra turned to Jaren. This is the human I told you about. He is brave, clever, and will help us protect the kingdom. Jaren nodded respectfully. I am here to help in any way I can, he said. The advisors studied him for a moment. Then slowly they accepted his presence, recognizing the seriousness in his eyes. Jaren's confidence, calm under pressure, impressed even those who were skeptical of humans. Days passed quickly. Jaren learned the layout of the palace, the patterns of the city, and the whispers of political intrigue. He realized that some of the rival factions were not only plotting to seize power, but were secretly in league with the Empire, threatening Lyra's system. Every small act of sabotage, every rumor, could have disastrous consequences if ignored. One evening, while examining a defensive star map in Lyra's command room, Jaren noticed something. There's a pattern here, he said. Every time a patrol goes missing, it's near one of these docking bays. Someone is sabotaging your fleet before we even launch it. Lyra's eyes narrowed. You're right. We've been too focused on the Empire outside and not on the threats inside. Together, they devised a plan. Jaren would inspect the docking bays and starship engines personally, while Lyra would call a meeting with loyal commanders to strengthen security. They worked side by side, combining human ingenuity with alien technology. Late that night, Jaren moved quietly through the docking area. He examined engines, systems, and control panels, using his sharp eye to spot tiny devices hidden among the machinery. Each small discovery The galaxy seemed to hold its breath. Jaren stood on the command deck of Lyra's flagship, his hands resting on the controls as he studied the holographic display of the approaching enemy fleet. Dozens of massive ships, dark and menacing, moved with precision, their weapons ready. Lyra stood beside him, her silver wings folded neatly, her emerald eyes focused and sharp. They think we are unprepared, she said, her voice steady. They underestimate our strength. Jaren smiled slightly. Then we'll give them a surprise they won't forget. The enemy had gathered to crush Lyra's system and expand their empire. Every star, every planet, and every ship they conquered strengthened their grip on the galaxy. But they had not accounted for human ingenuity, and they certainly had not counted on Jaren. The plan was bold. Lyra's fleet would engage the enemy head-on, drawing attention while Jaren and a small strike team would infiltrate their command ship to disable their weapons. It was risky, but the alternative, allowing the Empire to dominate, was unacceptable. As the first shots fired, energy beams lit the void, creating a dazzling display of light. Lyra's ships maneuvered expertly, avoiding attacks and striking back with precision. Jaren monitored the battlefield, calculating the best points to exploit, predicting enemy movements with sharp intuition. Now, Jaren shouted, this path is clear. Follow me carefully. The small strike team accelerated toward the enemy flagship, slipping through the chaos like shadows. Inside, the massive corridors echoed with the sound of alien engines and hurried footsteps. Jaren moved quickly, deactivating security systems and guiding his team past guards with clever tricks and improvisation. Every action was precise, every decision critical. Lyra, observing the battle from above, knew the risks her companion was taking. Humans often acted with courage that bordered on recklessness, but their creativity and adaptability could turn the tide of impossible battles. She had seen it before, and she trusted him completely. Inside the flagship, Jaren reached the central control room. The enemy commanders were confident, certain that no human could outsmart them. But Jaren had spent years learning, exploring, and solving problems humans had never faced before. He smiled faintly. A few quick moves, a flick of his hands, and the enemy's main weapon systems began to fail. Screens went dark, alarms blared, and the alien commanders froze in confusion. Report, one shouted. Jaren's team worked in unison. Systems compromised, he said. Weapons offline in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Suddenly, the enemy flagship's weapons went dead. The massive fleet relying on its command ship faltered. Lyra's forces seized the moment, pressing the attack with renewed vigor. Energy beams sliced through the void, enemy ships twisting and spinning under coordinated fire. From above, Lyra watched Jaren's brilliance in action. Her admiration for him deepened, not as a child remembering a promise, but as a leader witnessing the courage and ingenuity of a human. She realized humans were capable of things her people could not always understand, and she was proud to fight alongside one. Jaren guided his team back to their shuttle, narrowly avoiding pursuit. They rejoined Lyra's fleet just as the battle reached its climax. Together, human and alien forces pushed the Empire's fleet into retreat. Enemy ships fled toward the edges of the star system, their coordination shattered, their morale broken. As the last ship disappeared into the darkness, a cheer rose from Lyra's forces. They had won against overwhelming odds, a victory that would be remembered for generations. Exhausted but victorious, Lyra turned to Jaren. You saved countless lives today, she said, her voice filled with gratitude and awe. I cannot thank you enough. Jaren shook his head, smiling. It was not just me. We did this together. Your people fought bravely. We combined our strengths, and that is what made the difference. Lyra studied him closely, her eyes reflecting the stars around them. You have changed my view of humans, she said softly. You are not just brave, you are clever, resourceful, and remarkable. Jaren chuckled lightly, a little embarrassed. I guess humans have a way of surprising everyone. Lyra smiled, but her expression quickly became serious again. The Empire may be retreating, but the threat is not gone. They will regroup and strike again. We must be ready. I know, Jaren said, but we learned something today. Even against impossible odds, humans and allies can find a way. We just have to stay smart and brave. That night, the fleet celebrated. Ships glowed with lights, laughter echoed across the decks, and for a brief moment, the galaxy seemed peaceful. Lyra and Jaren walked together along the flagship's observation deck, gazing at the stars. You have grown into someone I can trust, Lyra said quietly, stronger than I ever imagined. I see now why I promised myself to you so long ago. Jaren's eyes softened. And I see why I waited. You were always worth it, Lyra. Then and now. A gentle silence fell between them, filled with memories of childhood games, promises made under twin suns, and the recent trials they had faced together. The bond they had formed as children had transformed into a partnership of equals, one built on trust, courage, and shared victories. Lyra's voice broke the silence. One day when the galaxy is at peace, I hope we can return to those fields where we made that promise. Jaren smiled. I hope so too. And when we do, I'll remind you that some promises are meant to last a lifetime. As the twin suns rose again, casting golden light across the ships and the planets below, Jaren and Lyra stood side by side. The battle had shown them their strengths and the value of unity. Humans and aliens working together could overcome even the most powerful threats. And somewhere deep in the galaxy, the childhood promise that had begun in a field of grass had grown into a symbol of hope, courage, and partnership. Jaren and Lyra had not only survived, they had proven that when trust and determination meet, even the stars themselves could be within reach. The Empire would return. Surely, but for now, the victory was theirs. And for Jaren and Lyra, it was a reminder that some bonds once formed could not be broken by time, distance, or danger. They had kept their promise, in ways neither of them could have imagined, and the galaxy had witnessed the power of human courage, ingenuity, and heart. The galaxy was quiet for the first time in weeks. Lyra's fleet had returned victorious from the battle against the Empire, and the colonies in her star system were safe once more. The people celebrated, cheering for their princess, the brave human who had stood beside her, and the victory that had saved their homes. Jaren stood on the balcony of the palace, looking out over the city below. Lights sparkled along the streets, ships flew across the sky, and the air buzzed with excitement. Yet he was not thinking of the celebration. His mind drifted back to the fields where he had played as a child, to the twin suns that had watched over him and Lyra, and to the promise that had changed everything. Lyra appeared beside him, her wings catching the light. She had a calm and serene expression, a rare moment away from the duties of leadership. It feels strange, she said softly, to finally be here after all the years, after everything we have faced. Jaren turned to her, his eyes meeting hers. It doesn't feel strange to me. It feels right. I waited for this moment just like you promised you would. Lyra smiled, a mix of nostalgia and pride in her expression. I kept my promise too, Jaren. I returned, even after 20 years, because I knew some promises are bigger than time, bigger than distance, bigger than any battle. They stood in silence for a moment, the city below them alive with lights and laughter, yet their thoughts focused only on each other. The bond they had formed as children had survived decades, grown stronger through separation, and had now been tested in the fires of war. The royal advisors approached quietly. Princess Lyra, one began, the people wish to honor both you and the human who fought beside you. They wish to celebrate your bravery and the bond that saved our star system. Lyra nodded, her gaze returning to Jaren. And I wish to honor him myself, she said, for courage, for trust, and for keeping a promise that shaped both our lives. The celebration that followed was unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. Aliens of all shapes and colors, humans and visitors from nearby systems, gathered to witness a moment of unity and triumph. Music filled the air, and the sky above was lit with brilliant lights from the fleets that had defended the system. Yet amidst the festivities, Lyra pulled Jaren aside. They walked together to a quiet garden, a place where flowers glowed softly in the evening light and the twin moons reflected in a serene pond. The city's cheers were distant here, leaving only peace and the warmth of each other's presence. "You know," Lyra said, her voice gentle, "I never forgot the promise I made to you as a child. I wondered if it was foolish thinking a human could ever be by my side. But now, I see that no one could have been stronger, braver, or wiser than you." Jaren chuckled lightly, brushing his hand over his face. "I was just a boy who didn't know what he was doing. But I did know one thing: I would wait, and I hoped that someday we would face the galaxy together." Lyra's smile widened. She stepped closer, her wings folding slightly. "We have faced the galaxy together, Jaren, and now, I want to fulfill the rest of my promise." Jaren's heart skipped a beat. He remembered the words from 2 decades ago, playful and innocent, now returning with weight and meaning. "Lyra," he whispered, unsure if words could capture the moment.